And I see the stream is now live on YouTube, so I'll welcome everyone formally to our Prescott Town Council meeting for Monday, March 21st, 2022. I will begin with item 1, of course. That's the formal call to order, and I'll note that we'll begin this meeting of council by acknowledging that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples. In particular, tonight, we acknowledge the traditional territory of the Huron-Wendat, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabeg, and the Oneida and Haudenosaunee peoples. And right on to item 2 tonight, approval of the agenda. And I will note just before we get going that this should be our last full Zoom meeting. I have talked to staff and we are looking at going back into the council chambers for the next meeting, which I believe is April 4th. So I think that's where, if anyone has any concerns, any comments, please forward them on to staff. We are looking at having the possibility of a hybrid meeting if anyone is having any issues. And of course, if anyone has any symptoms whatsoever, we'd ask you to stay home that evening, and we'll make sure accommodations are provided through that hybrid meeting format, so people will be able to call in and join on video if and as needed. So otherwise, though, we are looking to get everybody's smiling faces back into council chambers in a couple of weeks. So with that, though, I'll just move on to approval of tonight's agenda. The recommendation reads that the agenda for the council meeting of March 21st, 2022 be approved as presented. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any comments, questions on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. Item 3, declarations of interest. Any declarations from members of council this evening? Seeing none. 4 presentations, none tonight. Delegations, also none tonight. Under 6 is our usual minutes of our previous council meetings, and 6.1 is the set of minutes from March 7th. Recommendation reads that the council minutes dated March 7, 2022 be accepted as presented. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Shankar, seconded by Councillor Jansman. Any comments, questions on that set of minutes from our last meeting dated March the 7th? Seeing no, so I will call the vote on that. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks again, all. 7, communications and petitions, nothing tonight. 8, under consent reports, we do have fairly standard items. 8.1 is the info pack. 8.2 is staff report 30-2022. That's our annual drinking water quality report. 8.3 is staff report 31-2022. That's the 21 Prescott wastewater system annual report. And spoiler alert, absolutely no issues with drinking water quality or the wastewater system. Stellar report on in both areas. But does anyone want to split these off for separate discussion this evening and separate vote? Councillor Jansman? You're muted, Teresa.
So sorry.
Okay.
Sorry about that. If I could, Mayor Todd, bring attention to number 3 and number 4 of the information package. Number 3 for the people at home, it's a community podcast episode sponsorship. And what it is, it's proposing a third party to do the history of Prescott, and the cost is $250, a one-time cost. Apparently, he's been doing this for a couple years and is more from out west, but he's coming across Canada doing hometowns of history and whatnot. And I thought perhaps with that small cost, it's about 40 minutes. It might be a nice historical link on our website to promote the museum and Prescott overall.
Sure, if everyone's okay with that, could we refer that back to staff and maybe have someone contact the gentleman? Maybe there's a brief little bit we can get back on that. Matthew, did you have a comment?
I think we can take care of that, not a problem.
Everyone good with that? Seeing some nods, no shaking of heads or fists, so I think we're good on that one. Councillor Chansman, you had another one you mentioned?
Yes, number 4. It was from the Lake of Bays resolution of support, and it's in regards to hospital capital funding. And this has been a discussion around our table a couple of times, because as we all appreciate having our Brockville VGH next door to us, as well as other hospitals in the area. It was discussed, and I still have an issue with us spending $30,000 a year for something that should be provincially mandated. So in other words, our taxpayers are getting charged twice for supporting hospital capital funding. So if I could request for staff direction to look at that and give their opinion and possibly ask our council for support.
Certainly, I'll put it out to the whole group. Is everyone okay with staff direction to bring that one back for a look-see at, I'm guessing, our next meeting? Seeing nodding heads all around again, so I think we're good with that. So Ms. Veldkamp, Mr. Armstrong, if you could please bring that back to us for our next meeting for another quick look. Thank you, Councillor Jansman. Was there anything else, Councillor Jansman, or from anyone on the information package this evening? Seeing no requests to separate the other items, so I'll return to the recommendation that all items listed under the consent report section of the agenda be accepted as presented. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks very much again, everyone. 9 committee reports, nothing this evening. 10 mayor. I'm going to give everybody a break tonight and pass for the first time in quite a while. So I'll go right to 11 and start as always with Councillor Burton.
Thank you. And I have nothing to report.
It's a trend. Councillor Jansman, please.
Just a report on the BIA. We met within the last couple of weeks on March 8th. It was our first meeting with the new board. So Tracy Young was chairing her first meeting. Staff, as always, gave a wonderful update. Elizabeth did her webinar recap, and Justin did his updates, including the discussion of the new BIA website, which is within our town's website, but soon to be live. So that's great. And discussion took place as well about the farmers market this year, which is promising to be very, very good and well attended, I guess. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jansman. I just noticed, and I guess in speaking with Dana last week, the prep is already really well underway for the farmers market. So good to see that's really moving forward this year. Excellent stuff that will get that market really rolling with this summer after that good start last year. Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Last Friday, I attended the curling club, and having been a longtime member, I served as an instructor for some members from Walker House. Walker House had a function there on Friday afternoon. We had, I guess, about a dozen people come out. Some of them were there for the second time. You may remember we had a function there again about a month ago, and they did very well. The people that I had, they started out terrible, and by the time they finished the 2 hours of instruction, I think they were good enough to play in most of the leagues that we had in the club. And they were asking about the different leagues that we had when they played. So I'm very hopeful that next year we can either get a Walker House group that curls regularly at the curling club, sort of a league of their own possibly, or several more that might join the curling club. 2 weeks ago, we had our monthly library board meeting, and we voted to change the library board hours starting on the 4th of April. And we will be going to 11 in the morning till 7 at night, Monday to Thursday, 1 to 5 on Fridays, and 10 to 2 on Saturdays. And that will start on April 4th. And with the relaxing of the regulations, the COVID regulations, the library board is planning, I guess we would call it a welcome back week, and that will start directly after Easter on the 12th and run through the 16th. There will be some evening activities. One of the things we're planning is a scavenger hunt among the books for prizes, which should be quite interesting. So there'll be more to come on that, but we're looking forward to welcoming people back to longer hours at the library. As you may or may not know, Jane, our head librarian, is retiring as of the end of June, and we have hired a new librarian, and she will start the 1st of July. And she's already working for us. As a matter of fact, she worked upstairs for us for a while, and she's been taking the librarian course, and we'll be finished with that in April, and we'll be a fully qualified librarian, which will lead us down the road for many years to come, I'm sure. And that's all I have right now. Thank you, Mayor Todd.
You did neglect the name of the new chief librarian, though.
Oh,
Ann Gillard.
Ann Gillard, yes, I'm sorry.
No worries. But a big welcome from all of us to Ann. She's been working at the library for a while now, very diligently. She's really excited, and I think we're all pretty happy to have her for sure. So good news announcements and good stuff happening at the library for sure right now. Thanks very much, Lee. And moving on, we have Councilor Ostrander, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a shout out. It's been in the paper and that, but Connect Youth was the recipient of one of MPP Clark's handouts here this past week. A little over $100,000, which represents about roughly 3 times more than we have received in the past. And we're very grateful of that, considering the busy season is coming up quickly for them. The only other thing is I'd like to mention that for people not to forget, our local Legion are back having their meals on Thursdays, both at noon and supper hour. So it'd be nice to see the hall filled again. It was filled pretty good last Thursday as I was there, but it's a nice way of supporting the Legion and a nice way of not having to cook one night a week. So anyway, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Mike. Absolutely. Great to see such signs of life. Curling Club, Legion. It's great to see everybody coming. Walker House, everybody kind of coming back to life again as we move out of COVID. Thanks so much for that update. Councilor Shankar, please.
Nothing much to report on my end, so we'll just keep her going. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Corey. Councilor Young.
Same from me, Brett. Nothing to report.
Great. Thanks, everyone. I do have one thing I did want to do a quick update on because I've had a few comments lately. We are well into pothole season, and our town work staff is on that, looking at some of the depressions in the roads, the potholes as well. Obviously, this is the time of year for that. If you do have anything, though, please use the report a problem function on our website and let us know where those issues are, and we will be getting to them shortly. Same with the usual spring cleanup. We're just waiting for the final remnants of the snow and just a little bit further. This is always the muckiest time of year for everyone, but rest assured the operations staff is on this, and we'll be working at cleaning up the downtown and the parks as soon as we can get to it when things dry up just a little bit more and we move a little bit further into the spring. But it's always worth it in the end. We go through these few weeks, and then spring and summer are here. So we've turned a corner. But I just did want to note that because I have been getting comments, and I'm sure everyone else on the call tonight has been getting them from friends and neighbors as well. So moving along, we do have staff that tonight we have quite a number of reports there. So start off, it's under item 12, and 12.1 is staff report 32-2022. That's our community grant recommendations for the first intake for the year 2022, of course. Recommendation is that council approve the 2022 community grant allocation recommendations intake number 1, totaling $41,600 as outlined in staff report 32-2022. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Burton, seconded by Councilor Young. We do have the staff report, but I know we have a council group, and I apologize. I can't remember who the members are, but I would open it up for a member from that group to comment first here before we lead into staff, if there were any comments from the group that worked with staff on looking at the community grants. Anybody? Councilor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Well, as usual, we have a budget that we put towards this, and sometimes we fold a little extra in, depending on the circumstances we have in the past. But we have 2 intakes of this, and sometimes the people that we normally fund don't submit until the second intake, and that is the same thing that's happened this year. They're all, well, I shouldn't say they're all, but there's an awful lot of very worthwhile things for us to fund. Many of the things that we've funded in the past, some of them have got interrupted by COVID, of course, but are coming back on track now. There were a few things in there, though, that we found that really, they're needy and they're worthwhile expenses that organizations are going to have to make, but they didn't meet the qualifications of what this fund is for. So we are making other suggestions as to where they can apply for money. But I think the report pretty much speaks for itself, and we were all in agreement while we were doing it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Anything else from the other members of the group? Okay, I'll go to staff. Mr. Armstrong, any comments there? It does really speak for itself, but you want to just kind of hit the highlights quick for those maybe watching at home and looking forward to seeing a check sometime soon.
So there was 4 organizations that normally apply or regularly apply every year. And so we expect them to be part of the second intake. And that was the Food Bank, King's Kitchen, Prescott Minor Soccer, as well as Connect Youth. So when we take a look at the other applicants that are our regulars, then what we did is kind of paired them back to, if they requested more than their normal annual amount, to their regular annual amount. And then what we did is anything above and beyond that amount, we said we would consider as a part of intake number 2. There were 4 new grant applicants this year, one being the Fort Wellington Branch 97 of the Royal Canadian Legion. They made a sizable request, and mostly to do with capital building upgrades, which is not part of our program, and accounted for under it. So the other is the Dare to Dream, again, looking to do an accessibility ramp as well as an emergency exit, which doesn't follow under this program. Loaves and Fishes is looking to do a mobile kitchen, of which they're looking for a total of $75,000 as startup funding. $15,000 was the request for the town of Prescott. What we would like to do is go back, see how their other requests are doing from other municipalities, as well as have a conversation as to their partnership and collaborations with King's Kitchen and the local food bank. And finally, the YMCA of Eastern Ontario put in an application for $6,900 to provide busing from Prescott to the Y in Brockville. And that, again, looking for just a little bit more information, I believe Councillor Ostrander was going to have a discussion with Connect Youth to see if they were going to be a partner in that as well. So we'll just look for additional information and get back on that one. So the total recommendation for this evening is $41,600 out of our total budget of $58,000. That leaves $16,400 as unallocated. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Any other comments, questions from members of council this evening? Seeing none, the only thing I wanted to comment on was the Legion request. Have we talked to them all about a Trillium grant? I think they've got an intake coming with Trillium in the not too distant future. I don't know if we could have any ability to assist them with the application process, if we'd have to sponsor that with them. I think that's what we've had to do in the past for community groups, but has there been any communication with the Legion on that? Because they would seem to have a pretty strong application there.
Certainly. So we wanted to just get through this evening, and then I was going to reach out tomorrow and make that offer.
That'd be great. Thank you very much. And some of the others be interesting to see what comes back in the mobile kitchen project and that YMCA opportunity there. Those both seem interesting as well. But any other comments from anyone this evening? Seeing none, I will call a question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone, and thanks to the working group for the added time that was put into those applications. So we are at 12.2, that's staff report 33-2022, official plan review. This is on the statutory public open house. So the recommendation reads that council directs staff to schedule the statutory public open house for the official plan review prior to the end of April 2022. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Mr. Armstrong, was that you? I believe it was.
Yes, it is. So if you will remember, we did have a special council meeting in April of 2021. We have since received feedback on the draft official plan from the province, and now we're ready to move forward with the open public house. And so looking to do that towards the end of April, and certainly with the opening up now of reduced restrictions and whatnot, it seems like a good time to be able to do that. And it's the next stage in our process. So really that's what we're putting in front of you this evening, and look forward to any feedback there might be.
And I apologize if I missed it in the report, Matthew, but have we looked at a location? Are we going to have it at the fire hall, somewhere like a larger space? Just
Yep, looking at either the fire hall or second floor Ruth Evanson, just depending on how much space we need and how the schedules work out in terms of the meeting availabilities.
I'd suggest the larger space if it is doable, just because we are still at a tricky time with the masks coming off. So I just for public health safety overall, if we could do that, I think it would be probably advisable. But any comments from anyone on this report this evening? Councillor McConnell, please.
Not on the report as such, Mayor Todd, but I'm glad that Matthew has brought this up well ahead of the latter part of April. You remember possibly the last time that we had a public meeting, Matthew wasn't our CAO at the time, and the meeting was called very quickly because of time constraints and our CAO leaving us, and we got complaints over that, and quite frankly, I think they were justified. So I think plenty of warning for this meeting, and having it, as you suggested, in a large enough space to accommodate anybody that wants to come, I think is a good way to go about it.
Any other comments this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And we're on to 12.3, that's staff report 34-2022. That's our information technology maintenance and support program. This is the results of the RFP that went out a little while back. So the recommendation arising from that is that council directs staff to enter into a 3-year contract with OnServe for the provision of information technology maintenance and support for the town of Prescott. Mr. Armstrong, please. Oh, sorry. Could I have a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Young. Mr. Armstrong.
Thank you very much. So every 3 years we go out and take a look at our managed information technology services agreement. And so last time we did that was in March of 2019. That resulted us in moving to Zycom as a provider from OnServe. We went through the process again this year in February of 2022. And this time we had 3 proponents that submitted. And after scoring, reviewing the submissions and having a follow-up conversation, then we're putting forward returning to OnServe as of April of 2022. You can see from the list, local municipalities that use OnServe include Edwardsburg Cardinal, Elizabethtown Kitley, Markville Wolford, and North Grumble, among several others that are a little bit beyond our immediate location. So the amount that was proposed is within the amount that was included in the 2022 operating budget, and we're comfortable making the recommendation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Any comments from members of council this evening? Councillor Jansman, please.
through you, Mayor Todd, if I could, Matthew, any concern about the switchover, the changeover to cause disruption or whatnot?
We don't believe it will be a significant issue. It takes approximately a month from the time that we start to finish. And basically it's making sure that all accesses are provided for the new provider, removed for the old provider, and that the network and things that need to be installed on each individual machine are taken care of. One of the nice things that we've done in the last couple of years is moved a lot of our infrastructure and programs off site and into the cloud. And so there's not a great deal of rework from that perspective. So there's a fair amount of work that needs to go into it. But that being said, it should be fairly seamless. And if we give a fair amount of lead time so that we can have everything in place for the time that we actually pull the trigger.
Perfect. Actually, you answered my second question on whether we utilize the cloud platform or not. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jansman. Thank you, Mr. Armstrong. Any other comments, questions on this report? Seeing none, I'll call the question then. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks again, everyone. And we're now at 12.4. This is for information only. It's staff report 35-2022. It's on improving the monitoring and public reporting of sewage overflows and bypass program funding. We did receive some added funding from the province. Mr. Armstrong, please.
Thank you very much. So with this particular funding, we didn't have to apply for it. It is something that the government developed on their own, as well as the eligibility requirements. So there's 20 municipalities that they chose throughout Ontario, of which the town of Prescott is one. And the goal is to put in monitoring as well as modeling to be able to tell when we're about to go into bypass from a sewage perspective, and then exactly how much that was released. And so with that and with the modeling is that as we do additional street work, road reconstructions, that sort of thing, that we're able to tell what that effect would be on the overall, and with the ending goal of trying to alleviate bypasses. The good news is that in the last 2 years, we haven't had any bypasses, knocking on wood. Now we're going to have all sorts. So that's just how karma works. But certainly we're appreciative of the funding. It's something that will certainly help us from a monitoring perspective, being able to tell when we're on the verge of going into bypass and at what point it does flip over into bypass if required. The other point that we wanted to highlight is that this particular report is for information only, simply because we have the bylaw later on to actually approve the agreement with the government. So more than happy to answer any questions there might be, but and we will also work with our engineers and OCPA to make sure that we install the correct equipment, monitoring equipment, that's going to really inform the model that will allow us to make those decisions going forward. Thank you.
The only thing I'd like to underline on that before I open it up is we're receiving this funding not because of any issues with our system. This was just fortunate that the province did choose us for this. We haven't been going into bypass, as Matthew did say, so I just did want to underline that if anyone's concerned that we received this money for any specific reasons. No, it's just to improve our monitoring, and it'll improve the monitoring on a system that's already working extremely well. Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Matthew, would you remind me, please, how many possible overflow bypasses there are in town?
I believe the number is 5, and basically it correlates to the number of pumping stations that we have. So if a pumping station is unable to keep up with the flow that's coming in, that's when you would have the possibility of it going into bypass and therefore alleviating the overall stress on the system.
Okay, so there's some a long way away from the river. Excuse Yeah, I have a friend here that wants to get some camera time. So those wouldn't go in overflow in bypass very often, I wouldn't think.
That's correct. It's mostly the ones that are further down the stream. So generally the ones that run along King Street would be, and then I believe the one that's directly at the wastewater treatment plant itself. So those would generally be the ones. All the other ones are pulling a much smaller from a much smaller number of residents, and so they wouldn't necessarily go into overflow. But as each of those stack up, then the ones that are further downstream would have the possibility of going into overflow.
Okay, and so all of them will be covered by this new technology.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Young. Other comments, questions? Seeing none, so I think we can move along on that item. That was just for information purposes. Matt, I guess the only question I would have, when is this, when we're going to start installing?
So we have to be completed by 2024. So we will do our engineering work this year. I would expect us to be installing in the fall and bringing it live kind of early in 2023.
Good stuff. Thanks very much. And we are now on to 12.5. That's staff report 36-2022. This is the community improvement plan amendments that we talked about at different council meetings in the past. So it's coming forward tonight as a recommendation with the report. Recommendation reads that council directs staff to undertake a comprehensive review of the community improvement plan program and bring forward amendments and recommendations to the Planning Advisory Committee for consideration in accordance with Part 4 of the Planning Act RSO 1990 as amended. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Jansman, seconded by Councillor Burton. Mr. Armstrong, oh, sorry, this is Dana. Ms. Valentine, can you take us through this and what you're looking for tonight as direction for CIP changes?
Thanks, Mayor Todd, through you to council. So as you're very familiar with our CIP program, highly successful CIP program, as you'll see from some of the numbers that have been included in tonight's report. So since I was hired in 2018, we have issued $383,000 in grants, $260,000 in loans to over 41 properties. So that's, and it's equated to leveraging of over $10 million of in private sector investment that we've seen throughout the community. A lot of that has been focused in our downtown core, as I'm sure many of you are seeing from the welcome upgrades that are happening to our downtown properties. And, you know, given that we've been working with this program for about 3 years now, we've got a pretty good handle on some of the, you know, the great benefits that are available through the program, as well as some potential gaps that we've identified that there's maybe some opportunities that we could look at amending to provide some new categories, look at some new areas, and possibly even increasing some of the available funding that's open to properties depending on the type of project that they are proposing. So we're basically tonight just looking for approval from council to proceed with that more comprehensive review. As you know, I've provided a very preliminary list of some of the example amendments that we're looking at here. First and foremost would be possibly the addition of a new category that would look at incentives available for affordable housing projects, which we're seeing a lot of municipalities are adding to their CIP program, especially given the you know, the overwhelming need that we continue to see in our community and throughout the region for housing increases, and affordable housing as well is a really key component to that. So that incentive program could potentially look at that, as well as more the commercial focused amendments, potentially adding an ability to look at repeat applications, because we're running into a situation where a business, you know, may receive funding And within maybe 6 or 7 years, it could either be expanding and relocating to a new location and then making way for a new business to come in, as well as potentially looking for funding under the new property that they've relocated to. So some of those limitations we're finding can be a bit of a deterrent, and it makes it difficult once we've already approved funding under a certain property to look at secondary applications. And something else that we're also looking at is whether we could add the ability for both the property owner themselves, as well as the business tenant to apply for and receive funding under duplicate categories. For example, sometimes a property owner will be making significant structural upgrades that would take in some of those commercial spaces, that a business tenant may then come and put an additional renovation project in to improve and make that space ready for an actual retail operation that would go much above and beyond some of those structural work that was completed. And it would leave them essentially blocked from tapping into the CIP incentive program. So just some of those limitations, as well as I would say a gap that we've identified is our downtown design guidelines. They're somewhat lacking in, they're more of a recommendation versus being a real prescriptive requirement. So we are finding there are some cases when it comes to signage types, lettering, lighting, color choices, where we really aren't able to, not dictate, so to speak, but really prescribe what it is that we want to see in that downtown core. And I think it's important to recognize that the downtown very much is a distinct district within the community, and there needs to be another set of design standards applied there, which we are currently doing, but they're very much recommendation based. So we'd like to create a bit more of a thorough, comprehensive set of design guidelines that could go along with the amended CIP to give us a little bit more influence over what's happening with some of those improvements in the downtown area. So those are really the key areas that we'd like to look at, hopefully amending as part of this more comprehensive review. And I'm happy to entertain any questions at this moment. We have included the existing guide as well as the complete plan under separate cover. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Dana. Thanks for the report and those added comments. Open it up for members of council. Somebody, any comments, questions on this, suggestions for direction and so forth. We'll start with Councillor Young, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Great idea that we should look at these things. I think we should be aware, though, that when we start making these amendments, we are also opening up the opportunity to apply for them, of course, and that will change our budget considerably. So I'm looking forward to that number being included in your report, Dana, which you would recommend we increase the budget to. Thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Matt, Dana, did you want to comment on that? Because this was a discussion that we did have earlier about potential changes to the budget and if there was some wiggle room built in already.
Yeah, I think as part of the recommendations, we would, definitely be recommending significant budget increases, because one of the areas that we're also really hoping to see is allocating increasing the actual amount of grants that would be available, as well as loans for some of those properties where owners are actually looking at improving the second and third story, or doing, a more extensive renovation to, say, the entire facade or the entire interior of the property. There's, the grants are great, but they are somewhat limited. They're perfect for a business that's coming into the retail commercial portion of that property. But when you start to look at a property owner who really wants to renovate the commercial as well as the entire facade, and maybe get those upper stories to a point where we could bring residential tenants back into them again, you're talking, upwards of $100,000, $200,000 in renovations. And at that point, the available incentives, really just kind of scratch the surface there. So I think that will be an important piece to this, is recognizing that this would definitely equate to some significant, budget increases or allocations that would be made available to some of those bigger projects that we hope to support moving forward.
Matt, comment on that. I saw you'd unmuted for a moment, and something we talked about a little while ago. I know if there was going to be need to open the budget up for this.
So certainly we can, once we review it and go through what each of those could mean in terms of additional funding, we can certainly make a specific change or adjustment between reserve funds. That being said, I think one of the things that we've realized is not necessarily all grants that we need to increase, but sometimes it's really the low or no interest loans that really $20,000 does not cover the extent of some of the size of the projects that people are undergoing. So in which case it doesn't actually require any additional funding or movement between because it just becomes a receivable, and then as the projects are finished and then the amounts are repaid, then it simply goes back to the town. So not really too much of a concern from that perspective, as long as we keep in mind or set a limit of the overall value of the property versus the loan, that we certainly wouldn't want to start exceeding the total value in terms of loan amounts, because then if something were unfortunate to happen, then being able to recover the money would be problematic. But certainly I think that that's a big portion of the improvements is really looking at those and how do we support that those larger projects and undertake.
Thanks, Matthew. Sorry, I'm not sure who I had next. Gory, were you up next?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, Councillor Shankar, please.
Thank you. I just have a question, Dana, with regards to community members that have already applied for these grants. Like when we show that there's going to be a new wave of grants or a new wave of assistance for different levels of incorporation, they're going to have, obviously, they're well in tune to it, so they're going to have an advantage over someone who's never used them. Are we keeping that in mind when we're deciding who gets the grants or loans?
I think it would be very similar to once we go into that amended program. Matthew, please step in here. But it's my understanding once we adopt an amended CIP program, we would also be able to entertain subsequent applications from some of those properties that have been previously funded, as well as entertaining new applications. But I think it would be, each application would be very much based on the merit of the project, as well as looking at the history of the work that's been done to date. We want to ensure that we're entertaining new projects while also not deterring previous applicants from reapplying who, may be going above and beyond and adding to the work that they've done previously.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shankar. Did I see any other hands up? Did I miss anyone else? Go with Councillor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I'm a supporter of this program and always have been, but I'm a little leery of the expansion that we're looking at. I've been thinking a lot about this, and I believe to a certain extent, some of these grants that we are making need to be tied to performance. We have in the past given grants to people for down street facade appearances that were working on a building, and years later, the building is still not habitable. That's not what they're for. They're for, in my opinion anyway, to help you make a building habitable and to make it good looking from the outside. And in my opinion, if in a period of time that council should decide, and I'm just going to pick a figure of 2 years out of the air, if that building is not habitable, then a percentage of that grant should come back to council. And if a year later it is still not habitable, then another percentage should come back to council, so that we're not just throwing money in and not seeing a tangible result for it. The other thing is I have been the owner of a sizable property downtown, and I've been a tenant as well. And when you buy a building and when you decide to open a business, you have to look at what it's going to cost you to renovate that property. And as a tenant, what it's going to cost you to open your business there. In other words, paint, wallpaper, carpet, tile, whatever. Part of this I see is for paint, wallpaper, carpeting. I don't believe that should be part of the thing at all. That is something that should be stood by either the landlord or the tenant. And we have examples of downtown places that are for rent now where that has been done. And I think that's more the way to go about it. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. And this actually is a discussion that we've had at both Councilors Burton and Jansman will know we've had this discussion at PAC at different times in the past about performance metrics. We do pay on the submission of receipts, so we're not just giving money to projects that aren't being touched. The problem is the completion of those projects and the properties getting open for commercial use or residential use, and that has been an issue, particularly the last couple of years. Part of that has, of course, been COVID, but I mean that issue only goes so far, and it is something we've got to look to tighten up for sure with some sort of performance metrics, and that is something that we have talked about at PAC on a number of occasions, because as you know, we've all noticed, we've put the money out into some buildings, some work has been done, but it hasn't been completed to the point where it can be occupied or open to the public in the terms of commercial. So excellent points, and I know it's something that Dana will be looking at, and if anyone has anything specific on that, please email it into staff as well, so staff can track everything from tonight. But any further comments this evening on the CIP potential expansion? Seeing nothing further, so I think we're good. Thanks, everyone. And I'll just note again, if anyone comes up with anything at all, please email it into Dana and Matt so we can track it and look to bring that back to council. I think the time frame on this, they're going to try to expedite it and try to hopefully move something forward. So maybe we can capture some of the construction season this late this spring, summer. So it will be probably coming back to council. Matthew, we were talking the very start of May or second meeting in May. We were looking at possibly getting it back to council by after it goes to PAC.
Depending on how long it takes us for the community portion that we have to go through, then certainly it'd be great if we can get it back for May. Then otherwise it will be beginning of June.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Obviously, we have taken some blows downtown with COVID, like Main Street, Canada, everywhere. So anything we can do here, I think, would be a big boost to our downtown King Street and to the economy in town overall. So go back to the recommendation then. I did have a mover and a seconder, so I'll proceed with the vote. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And again, any extra feedback, email it in, and we will be moving forward on this through April and into May. And now we're at the last touches of our budget for 2022, starting off with staff report 37-22. That's our operational budget. Recommendation reads that council approve the 2022 operating budget with total revenues and expenditures of $10,042,035, and that council approve the 2022 water and wastewater budget with total revenues and expenditures of $2,939,397, and that council approve that the final property tax payment for the year 2022 should be split into two equal payments due August 31st, 2022 and October 31st, 2022. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Mr. Armstrong, some final comments on our operational budget for this year.
So What you have before you this evening is the operational budget. We have reviewed it over 7 meetings dating back to the beginning of December. And it includes a property tax increase of 2.85%, which is inclusive of the 1% dedicated to infrastructure, as well as a 2% increase in water and wastewater rates effective July 1st. So because the education rate is remaining the same as 2021, then the average property tax increase will be 2.44%. This also includes a net contribution to reserve of $1,082,000 before capital and operational projects, and then for water and wastewater includes a net contribution of $528,000. You're able to see the various calculations that go into that, and happy to bring that forward this evening for consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. I'll open it up for comments, questions for members of council this evening. Councilor McConnell, please.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. Through you, if may, Matthew, of that 1 million and whatever it was for major projects there, how much of that are we actually expected to use this year?
We will expect to use the vast majority, and actually a little bit more than we're putting in total, because we do have the project that we have to finish up on Double Street East between Van Conant and Edward Street. And so in total, we're expecting to put in approximately what we're expecting to also take out.
Okay, thank you. My point was going to be that we're not taxing to throw $1 million and some dollars into reserves and not use it. We're taxing for things that we need and that we are going to spend doing this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Other comments, questions? Well, I think with that, we are at, well, we got one more to go here, but we're at pretty much the end of our budget process. Just want to thank everyone for all the hard work, all those on staff. We've gotten the numbers down. I think we've come in with a solid number this year, especially given the inflationary pressures that hit municipalities just as hard as they hit the average household. It's a tough time for all of us, but we're doing what we can to try to hold the line here while still being responsible enough that we can't come in at zero, folks. It's just not possible to be financially responsible and do that with all of our needs and all the inflationary pressures, again, that hit us. So I think this is a good number that also provides us that 1% for the infrastructure, helps us get good projects done, keep the level of service and the standards out there on the streets that people have come to expect here from the town of Prescott. So I think we're in a very, very good state, despite the challenges of COVID and the ongoing issues with the Canadian economy overall. So with that, I see no further questions. I will call the motion. All those in favor? Thanks, everyone, and thanks again for all the great work on this. Everyone, give yourselves a pat in the back. It was a good long process, a lot of feedback, and I think it's something we can all be quite proud of. And speaking of being proud of budget, we do have one more item here under 12.7. That's staff report 38-2022. That's this year's capital and operating projects budget. Recommendation reads that council approve the 22 capital and operating projects budget as outlined in staff report 38-2022. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Young, seconded by Councilor Burton. Mr. Armstrong, over to you again. If you just hit some of the key highlights that people can expect to see out and about in the streets of Prescott this year.
Certainly, thank you very much. So the total of just shy of $7 million is made up of several projects. Most notable, the Edward Street Overpass project, which will be planned for this year. We'll go through the planning and engineering, go out to tender in the latter part of this year or early in 2023 to get it completed in 2023. We're also have already begun doing the determining exactly what we need from a rescue pumper, and so that is in there as well. That will come back to council later on as we move closer to going out to tender. G&H dock have been awarded and will be arriving in May, and that will be 2 out of our, I believe, 7 docks that will be replaced this year, with the plan going forward of replacing 1 per year. It's a reminder that those docks are over 30 years old, and so certainly we're moving towards rejuvenating our marina, and that's certainly something that we're looking forward to. Replacing a 1-ton truck. Our 1-ton is towards its end of life now and need to be replaced, as well as there's a couple of projects in here that are contingent upon funding. And if that funding is approved, then doing some improvements to the lighthouse so that people can start to return to the top and enjoy that, but also provide for a pop-up shop in the base of the lighthouse, and providing pop-up sheds or Riverwalk Village to be able to provide entrepreneurs an opportunity to display their services or wares to the town in the seasonal spring, summer, and fall months. Replacing fire department gear, replacing or adding a new swing blade to the new plow, and certainly also addressing our health and safety play structure deficiencies as they arrive, and bringing our recreational lending library to fruition in Centennial and or the marina. So all of that, it comes to approximately $2.7 million. It also allocates the final amount of the modernization funding to economic development initiatives that we will come back to later and throughout the year as we realize those initiatives and want to put those forward. So I think there's certainly a lot of other projects that are ongoing. Certainly the arena is and the recreation complex is ongoing. The bulk of the work will be throughout this year and as we move into the end of the year and early next year. As I mentioned just a few moments ago, finishing Tibble Street East, the reconstruction of that from Van Conen to Edward Street, as well as a whole host of other projects. And I think just a couple of weeks ago, you started to see some of the improvements that we're making to the break wall, or not the break wall, but the shoreline in Centennial Park. And so I highly recommend going down and taking a look at those improvements and that sort of thing. So really, this is a year where we're going to take the opportunity to catch up on a lot of the projects that we've had on our plate, as well as adding some that are critical as we move forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Open it up for comments and questions from members of council. Councilor McConnell, please.
I'm glad Matthew mentioned the work at Centennial Park, because I was going to mention it. I walk through there every day, and they've taken advantage of the fact that the ground is frozen not to do any damage to the south end of the park. But there's a tremendous amount of rock fill that I believe came out of the sewer work on Tibble Street East. That was dumped on the shoreline, and many feet of grass and topsoil has been replaced south of the walkway and around the boat ramp area. I presume that's going to be seeded or sodded as soon as possible. So the south end of the park is looking much better than it has been in recent years. I also noticed one panel of a mural on the fence across the way on the Coast Guard when I come through there this morning. So that was kind of interesting. I don't know whether it's going to be it was just a trial balloon or what it is. Looks like a 4x8 foot sheet right south of the building, but it's something to keep your eye on. But kudos to staff for getting to the park at a time of year where it's going to be enjoyable all summer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McConnell. Other comments, questions from members of council? Seeing none, I just again want to thank everyone for the great work on this. Staff does the work, we provide the direction, and we've certainly done that when it comes to direction. I mean, we could talk here for half an hour, and well, we have for many hours on the budget on all these items, and not even get to the big one, which is of course the arena. We will see work resuming there at quite a busy pace in the weeks to come. And the majority of the work, of course, will be done through the balance of 2022 as we see the major equipment come in, the steel for the walls of the building and so forth. And of course, the building of the new rec fields as well, the new ball fields and soccer fields back there. So it's a really exciting year, a lot of great things happening, and it just goes to show what we can do here in a small town if we put our minds to it, sharpen our pencils when it comes to the numbers, and just work together as a team. We've got a lot of people that have helped volunteer for a lot of these areas, especially with the arena, and we've really accomplished a lot. And I think it is something else we can all be quite proud of as we see all these projects underway through 2022. So with no further comments, I don't see any hands up. I will call the question on the vote. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Again, thanks everyone. And that pretty much, I think we do have a couple more housekeeping items on the budget, or maybe I'm, Matt is nodding. I think but otherwise we're pretty much settled with the budget. Matt, we do have a couple housekeeping items, do we not? Those still to come in terms of the ratios and so forth?
It's actually right in this meeting, and so it's part of the bylaws 14.4 through 14.7.
Everything's included there. We don't have anything else that's coming back at the next meeting. We're completely wrapped.
So.
Oh, good stuff. Oh, you would know if anyone did. So excellent. That's fantastic. Thanks again to staff and everyone for what's been a very seamless and very progressive budget process this year. And I do see that in the bylaws now. I don't know how I missed that. I just assumed that would be coming next week. Yeah, we do have it's a lot of bylaws this meeting. I did see we had a lot, but I didn't even count to 7. So we're under, we do have one more item though, still on resolutions. We have moved out of the staff portion of this evening. So under resolutions in 13, we have 13.1. That's another notice of surplus land. And the recommendation reads that council declare the vacant real property located north of the CN rail line and south of Churchill Road from Boundary Street to Claxton Terrace as surplus to the needs of the corporation of the town of Prescott, and that the subject property be used for the purpose of future residential development that maintains a portion of public access to park space and provides for a multi-use path connecting Boundary Street with Claxton Terrace, and that staff be directed to proceed with the notice provisions of bylaw 16-1995 for a period of 30 days. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor McConnell, seconded by Councillor Young. Pretty much everything was in the notice, Matthew, but was there anything you wanted to add in terms of added context here?
No, so certainly we have a database of all of the vacant lots available in the town of Prescott, and this did prompt an unsolicited offer. That was taken to council. No decision has been made on the offer, but certainly the first step is taking a look and deeming the land as being surplus. So that's what we have in front of us this evening. Throughout the 30-day process, anyone has the ability to register any comments, questions, concerns, inquiries, that type of thing. And that will be posted later this week. And then we'll return to council with any feedback that is received.
Thanks very much, Matthew. Open up for comments, questions. Any member of council have anything that they'd like to add this evening? Seeing no comments, but I am going to add one myself because I have received some feedback on the other residential. The one thing I'll just underline again for everyone out there is that we are in a housing crisis in Ontario, folks. We're in a housing crisis here in Prescott, and we need to make strong efforts to alleviate that, to provide more options, good options for housing for people that is both affordable is always the buzzword, but just essentially something that is in the middle range as well, that is between affordable and what we've seen the market go up to, something that's achievable for the average family today. And we're lacking that in much of Ontario, as we've seen average house prices top, I think, $1 million. I mean, the GTA has obviously really inflated that, but I mean, we've seen huge inflation here as well. So Prescott needs to grow, but rest assured that anything we look at here at council, we are taking into at the very height of what we're looking at is the needs for the surrounding neighbors, If we do add housing, and however we do it, we will be looking at it with the greatest of care and concern for all the residents in the local area, because while we need to grow, we do not want that to be on the backs of the existing residents, and we do not want to compromise your quality of life in any way, shape, or form. With that said, I'll go back to the fact that we are in a housing crisis. We need to bring housing to the town of Prescott, and we need to do so, I believe, this year. So with that, I will ask again if anyone else had a comment. Seeing none, so I will call the question on the vote. All those in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks again, everyone. And now we're on to the endless stream of bylaws this evening. So I don't think they will take too long. So under 14 bylaws, 14.1, we start off with the lame duck bylaw and restricted authority of council. We did discuss this last meeting, and this is essentially a housekeeping matter. Recommendation reads that bylaw 12-2022 being a bylaw to delegate authorities during a restricted authority council period known as lame duck for the town of Prescott be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Young. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. 14.2, transfer payment agreement from Minister of the Environment, Conservation and Parks. This is in relation to the sewer matter we just discussed earlier. So recommendation reads that bylaw 13-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the signing of terms and conditions for the improving, monitoring, and public reporting of sewage overflows and bypasses program as provided by Your Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Environment, Conservation and Parks be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? By pretty much everybody, but I'll take Councillor Shankar moving and Councillor McConnell seconding. Any discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks again, everyone. 14.3 is a bylaw on establishing the river route transit service for the rest of this year and into 2023. Recommendation reads that bylaw 14-2022 being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement with Her Majesty the Queen in right of the province of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Transportation for the province of Ontario, dedicated gas tax funds be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Burton, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. This one I will, Mr. Armstrong, do you want to comment on this briefly? Because I see that Augusta did come on board. I will say finally, but it's great to have Augusta in as of last week. So I guess we're good to go until spring of 2023 now with the buses.
My understanding. And so with that, in order to qualify or to obtain the dedicated gas tax funding, we require this bylaw to be in place. It not only identifies that we're one of the funding partners, but that we would also receive the gas tax funding on behalf of the other partners as well as the lead organization. The two others have passed their resolutions in support of this, and then it also allows you to and the clerk to sign the agreement when we receive it. So this is one of the enabling things for us to receive funding, and so that's why it's critically important for us to pass it.
And it's a bit of an achievement as well. I mean, it not only opens us up for the funding, but it designates us as a transit community in Ontario, and it's something that we haven't been in the past. And it does, show our dedication to trying to improve the transit situation in our little corner of Eastern Ontario. So I think that's something to be noted as well here. Any comments, questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried. Thanks, everyone. And thanks, everyone, as well for the strong support you've all shown for the transit system all along. We've been the lead on that, and that's because of the great work of our staff and the great support that's been shown here at our council table from the beginning. So hopefully we get the ridership up and we see a really good year for the River Route bus service. And back to budget for these final bylaws this evening. So 14.4 is the 2022 estimates bylaw. Recommendations at bylaw 15-2022 being a bylaw to adopt the estimates for the sums required during the year 2022 for general purposes of the corporation of the town of Prescott be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Ostrander, seconded by Councillor Young. Mr. Armstrong, anything to add to this?
So this clearly identifies the amount that we are looking to raise through property taxes, and that's the $5,838,327. And you'll see that that correlates to the other bylaws that we're about to discuss as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Any comments from members of council this evening? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks all. 14.5 is the 2022 tax ratios bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 16-2022, being a bylaw to adopt tax rates for municipal purposes for the year 2022, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Again, could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. Thank you both very much. Mr. Armstrong, any comments on the ratios?
So these have not changed since last year. Because we have not gone through a property tax revaluation, then they remain the same as 2021, which is the same as 2020.
Thank you again, Mr. Armstrong. Any comments, questions from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. 14.6 is the 2022 tax rates bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 17-2022, being a bylaw to adopt tax rates for municipal purposes for the year 2022, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Once more, can I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Burton. Thank you very much. Mr. Armstrong, any comments on the tax rates?
So the tax rates are outlined in here. As I mentioned earlier, the education tax rate has not changed. To put in a second check to make sure that the municipal tax rates are correct, we independently calculated and multiplying the assessment by the municipal tax rate to come to the $5,838,327. And so it also notes in here the August 31st and October 31st dates, as we discussed earlier as well.
Great, thank you very much. Any other comments from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is approved. Again, thanks so much, everyone. And 14.7 is the 2022 capping thresholds bylaw. That recommendation reads that bylaw 18-2022, being a bylaw to adopt optional tools for the purposes of administering limits for the commercial, industrial, and multi-residential property classes for the year 2022, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor McConnell. Thanks so much, gentlemen. Mr. Armstrong, final word, and this is it for budget 2022.
And so these are tools that we would have if we had any properties that were capped in terms of increases. We don't have any capped classes, but we still are required to put these tools in place in case there was to be a situation in which it was capped.
Great, thank you. Thank you again, and thanks again for all your hard work on the budget. Any comments on this one from members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks again, all. So we're through bylaws and now 15 new business. Any member of council have any new business to present tonight? Seeing no, 16 notices of motion. Any member of council have a notice of motion to present this evening? Also seeing no, 17 mayor's proclamations, nothing tonight. 18 under closed session. We do have what I think will be a fairly brief closed session this evening. So the recommendation reads that council move into closed session at 7:16 p.m. to discuss matters pertaining to 18.1 approval of closed session minutes. That's just from our last meeting, and 18.2 purchase and sale. That's under section 239 2C of the Municipal Act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And we're asking that the CAO, treasurer, clerk, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. And we're all good. I assume everyone's good to continue here and wrap this evening. No one's needs any facilities break or any kind of recess. Sounds good. So I will ask for a mover and a seconder on that, please. Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. We will go into the in-camera session, and we should be back momentarily for those of us watching the streaming feed on YouTube.